looking for opportunities to do more with that work. I'm telling you, the path lies into really making what you've created in that book actionable. And so today I have an industry expert who's going to be joining us to give us all the deets on what it means to really create that path where your readers can easily take action. So thanks for being here for the Author's Leverage. Let's get into it.
You're listening to The Author's Leverage. You've written a book, you got it published, and you know you can make a much bigger impact with it than you already have. Maybe you're in the process of writing and publishing and want to be smart about how you help others and make more money while doing it. Welcome to the Author's Leverage Podcast, your guide to building a profitable business and changing more lives with your published work. This is the #1 show that brings you tips on making you a more successful author from the very best experts around every week. Our mission is to help you blast through the noise and get you clear on your path to success as an author. You'll be equipped with practical tips and insights from host Parshel Tashi and her featured guests, and you'll leave each episode more excited, more confident to get that dream authorship life that you deserve. So sit back, relax, and get ready. We're about to get real. We're about to clear. And from here, the sky's the limit. Here's your host, a former school teacher turned creative media entrepreneur and now founder of the Author's Leverage, Parshel Tashi.
Today, I want to introduce to you an amazing human being that I've had the privilege to connect with recently. I'm blown away with just her passion for learning and teaching. So I'm excited to introduce you to Nina Everflow. Let me give you a little bit about her so you understand who's coming to the table today. So Nina Everflow is an industry recognized e-learning expert with a 15-year career in training, virtual facilitation, and instructional design. She supports leaders across large and small organizations in developing meaningful learning environments for behavior change. Through her learning design agency, Everflow Consulting, she supports authors and purpose-driven leaders develop clear, compelling, and results-oriented educational solutions through an inclusive lens. Welcome to the Author's Leverage. Woo, Nina, so glad you are here.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here with you today.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about your journey. I know, as I shared, I'm a teacher, so I come from that background of education. So tell us a little bit about yours.
Yeah, I kind of stepped into this space with not that intention. My graduate school and academic background is in international politics. I thought I was going to be a State Department ambassador, and that was really the eye on the prize that I had in my 20s. But I stepped into this space of, like, in the beginning, it was international education. It was like exploring, when foreign exchange students come to the US, the types of experiences that they are having to improve, either their academic or professional life. But what I was more curious about was the cultural experience that they were having with being in the United States, for many of them for the first time, and what that kind of layer of growth and challenge was having and influencing the way that they were learning, and being able to really hone in on some of those new experiences and personal development, growth, and expression. And so that really, I think, sparked this curiosity in me to be like, what is going on there when you have that intersection between someone who's passionate about learning and growth, right? But then they have this really, really intense kind of cultural moment and intersection, and how does that kind of either contribute or derail in some instances, right? Or like reaffirm, or like really, kick yourself on the ass in terms of like, who am I? What am I doing here? What do I stand for? Right? All those values kind of questions. So that got me really interested in this space of leadership development, what later became going towards corporate training in leadership development. All of that shows up, right? The internal, the external, all of this definition of what I what I value, what I stand for, how can I inspire people, how can I create change, whether in my organization, in my where I'm leading, people, or even in influencing people online, in my family unit, in my religious community, right? So it's just like really this space of like where we really get to grow up in a sense, and show up of who we really want to be. And so I've always been really curious about how do we create nourishing environments for that, to be in that space with one another, and to really create roots in self-reflection and then take new action. And one of the things that I think is so powerful about training adults is that they are motivated to show up differently. They are there to see themselves as this vision that they have for themselves. And so they're just like, yes, I'm going to do the inner work that I got to do to take the next step, whether it's in my career or in my profession or to make a name for myself in the industry. And I love being with folks who are like that motivated and passionate, right? To see themselves and their lives kind of transformed. And so that's why I created my agency to support authors, visionaries, business leaders in really creating inclusive and transformative learning experiences and environments that really move the needle on people in a deep way, right? Can really create and hold space for them to reimagine themselves differently, and then support them along that journey. Because I think that is really that critical piece that moves us from a teaching moment to a training moment. And those are the ones that I'm most excited to build.
I love that. And I love how you describe just that intersection between, someone who really, really wants to do something, really passionate about learning, but then uncertain space that they're going to encounter, which is still part of the learning process. And I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And in that moment, especially when someone has what I feel like just that spark of wanting to know something, wanting to grow in something, oftentimes starts with a book. It starts with the book, right? That's the first sort of engagement of, okay, I'm ready to do this. But then once we start to, because I think what the book does, it builds up that excitement. It paints that picture. It paints that vision, allows you to connect with it from a certain place. But what you're describing, that intersection, is where you and I like to operate. Like, how can we create these experiences that are really going to tie that together? So what are the most important factors for you that come into play when creating a really smooth experience for learning? Like, what are some of those core factors that have to be in place?
Yeah, I think what you're naming is so important, right? So one of the first pieces is just clarifying the intentions around a book, or the intentions around the keynote talk, or whatever else, right? What got people to the space, like that. Those channels or tools aren't so much the thing that is going to create the space for change, but they are, like you said, the inspiration, the spark, the motivator to be like, oh, this is possible. It's possible for someone else, so maybe it's possible for me, right? It gets them going towards, or in that direction, so that they can reimagine, right, the next version of themselves. But then that next stage, I really think, when we're identifying the path that most adults go towards beyond that motivation, beyond that initial spark, is then it's really risky business to do something new, right? So then you're challenged by, but my whole history of being an adult tells me I should not be taking this leap because A, B, and C, right? Like my whole family history, my cultural history, my financial reality, right? Like all these data points that are being like, I don't know if you really need to be putting your energy and intention in this space. You should probably do it somewhere else, right? So we have to like face all of that. And so one of the things that I love to do with authors that I work with when we're creating courses for their books is to really identify what are the realities that your learners are facing, right? Like, can we name some of those so that we understand not just their motivation for taking this program, but their challenges? What are the things that are going to trip them up? What are the things that they aren't thinking about that we need to be aware of, so that when it happens, we have a net in essence, right? A safety net to kind of help them. They're going to fall down. So how do we help lift them back up again to try again? And so that space for practice and iteration, I think, is so important, so that we're creating opportunity for them to not only understand some of the motivational factors, but also the challenge factors, and then also what is going to help them take that momentum and go again and again and again, because that's really how learning happens, right? It's not just a one-time. I've seen so many statistics around corporate training. None of the one-time events kind of learning opportunities, right, really create sustainable change. They just don't. That's not what the research says. What the research says is that social engaged learning supports adults in creating sustainable change, as does micro moments of learning over time, right? So small drips of information, small drips of practice opportunities over a sustainable or over a defined time is really going to help them, right, create those habits. Because really, when we're thinking about it, your brain has created all these neuron pathways about old patterns and behaviors, and learning is really that moment where we're asking our neurons to switch off and reconnect with something new. And you can't just do that once. You have to do it hundreds, if not thousands of times. So as many times as we can create in a learning program that we're going to lean towards something new and something different, we want to give that to them in a way that's fun and repetitive.
Absolutely. And I love that, because and it speaks to habits, right? Habits are so important to how we learn. And with a lot of the subject matter that we're taking in and consuming, it's like, it's not just that it just comes into your head. It's something that has to be in practice. You have to build up this habit so that way this area is always being maintained with the best practices that you learned. And you make a good point too when it comes to the fact that this is adult learning, right? Most of us are speaking to adults. And
Absolutely. Right.
I think even for myself sometimes, because of, my experience, I mean, I was in the school system, teaching in the school system. There are a lot of things that definitely translate over to adult learning, and there's some things that don't. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, like, what are the most important, let's say, aspects of teaching adults that sometimes is overlooked, right? We forget that we have attention problems too, for example, right? Like, that's one thing that comes to mind. I'm like, I feel like my attention span is worse
Yeah.
as an adult. So yeah, speak to speaking to
Absolutely.
teaching to adults, like, it's so different.
Right. Yeah, I come to this work because I really entered it from focusing on adults. I've never been a classroom teacher for young people, but I've been, my professional career has only been around what do adults need? Working adults, right? Like, so in professional roles who are super busy, and have a lot of pressures and responsibilities, particularly. So I think one of the things that I find really helpful is like owning our cultural identities and creating roots in getting supports from whatever our cultural heritage can present to us, right? And so one of the ways that I like to lean into this is to do this kind of cultural gathering or assessment. So as a Black American woman, I often hearken to what nourishes me when I'm in moments of stress or change or having to grow in ways that are uncomfortable, right? And music does it for me. I turn on some music, different music types for different moments, and I feel energized. I feel connected to my heritage. I feel inspired by what my ancestors were able to provide for me and the dream that they had for me to be a leader in the ways that I am right now, right? Like, those kind of ways help us own the bigness that we are, so that we can take this next step into the next version of who we are. So I think, like, owning our heritage, owning our roots is can be really inspiring and motivating for that process of change. And I also think one of the differences in teaching adults is that you really, I get to have like really interesting conversations about motivations, right? So like, kids don't really get a choice in a lot of ways when they have to go to school. And unless you're a homeschool parent like I am, where we are kid-centered, and so he gets to choose what he wants to dive into. But still, the broader choice about school is already been made for him by the adult, for my son, by the adults in his life. But adults get to be, get to have agency about what they want to get involved in. And so we like to dive into, what is your motivation? Why are you trying to do this? And if your motivation, one of the channels of your motivation is financial, let's lean into that. Let's really dive into, what does that mean? What are the numbers that you're trying to hit? What are the ways that you're going to invest in order to make more of that money on the other side, right? So we really get to identify, where can you have agency here? Where can you have really lean into your choice making in order to make this big leap, in order to further motivate you when things get hard, when things are stressful, so that you can continue to get all the way through.
I love that. And you can't really go there unless you know who you're talking to, right? Knowing your audience, knowing
yes.
Because even like what you said, when someone of this cultural makeup or ethnicity, their background, what have you, once they go to approach something new and different and scary, even, what is going to be something that's, and so that just really goes into way more understanding and awareness you need to have about who you're talking to, who your audience is.
Absolutely. And it still amazes me how many people set up, potential clients come to me and want to build a course, want to make the huge investment, and have very little data about who is actually going to buy the thing that they want to put out there. And there's still that belief, I think misguided, that once you build it, they will come. I have not yet seen the proof that is a reality in the marketplace today. So you really need to understand who it is for, what's happening in their life, what's their background, and why are they motivated to take on this risky change, and why then how you're going to prove to them that you are the person to support them in doing so. You got to come with clarity about those questions before even beginning about, okay, I'm going to build this container, right, of my expertise, because
100%.
building something, for a particular community is just makes it better. And I think too, to even go one layer further, is to say, to be really specific. And in that way, I like to say, not all courses are for all people. It's not an everybody kind of party. It's a very detailed, the more detailed that you can get about, they are a leader of a mid-level organization who is dealing with, people resource limitations, and they have, elderly parents that they're stressed with at home, right? Super, super specific to really embody how your solution is going to serve that kind of person.
100%. And how does this connect to, how we can decolonize instruction and teaching and learning right now? Because that has to be connected. It has to be from, creating from a place of, empathy and really knowing and being able to connect with where people are.
Yeah,
right. So how does that connect? And, other because that when you told me that when we had our first conversation, it's like, wow, this is so I don't know, to me, just groundbreaking in a way, because it's making learning applicable to anyone, right? And making sure that everyone is successful with it. So how does, this connect to authors who are writing books and then want to create, additional, products or experiences, learning experiences for them?
Yeah. I love this question. It just, and I could talk about it for hours and hours, but I will not. I will try to be succinct. So I think what I really want to say is, for authors who have a book and they are considering, right, making this investment into a new kind of channel, because a course is just a new version of, right, a specific element of the book. And I know we were talking before about, it's not the whole book, it's specific pieces of the book that go into the course.
Yes.
And I like to say, even beyond that, it's about the skills that you want to develop in another person, that the book supports and exemplifies that then go into the course. So really we're here, courses should be, from my perspective, about skill development. We want to change habits, change behaviors in order for people to get what they really want, which is the next version, right? And that isn't just lots of knowledge about your stories or your examples. It's about how I want to shift those neurons so I don't feel depleted at the end of the day, or my relationships are thriving instead of feeling tense and stressful. So a lot of the themes around that, right, are embedded in our beliefs around colonization, right? So for those that aren't familiar with the term, decolonizing anything really refers to the way that the transatlantic slave trade created a consciousness, really, about the utilization of humans as cargo. And that kind of belief that human beings are resources towards capitalism still very much exists today. We see that in so many examples, right? When we see unions getting busted, and we see, people just getting taken advantage of by corporations. And so I think in our learning spaces, we have the opportunity to start to detangle some of those beliefs that we live in from the larger society. And so one of the ways that I like to play around with this is just decolonizing our expertise. And that means that, yes, we have experiences. Yes, we have many years of focus on a particular area, but that doesn't necessarily mean the people that you are bringing into your learning environment don't also have really valuable experiences and expertise to share. And so can we create opportunities for people to share among each other instead of being dependent on you to deliver content to them? And so, of course, there's going to be a little bit of that, but it doesn't have to be the dominant model that your course is representing. And so it's in really creating these more communal and more reciprocal types of learning environments. You begin to see the network builds and strengthens, right? Instead of being this didactic from you to the learner, it's now from learner to learner, that learner to you to that other right? And so there's all these other ways that we then build relationship and respect, and our own individual expertise enhances because of that. And so there's a very clear way that you design with that kind of model, as opposed to the more traditional one-to-one kind of model. So that's one way, but there's so many ways that we can decolonize the way that we think that we have to own certain resources, whether they come from our brain or not, where the ways that we attempt to individualize learning, or the ways that we attempt to just kind of hoard it, right? And so it kind of feels like this power dominance that happens in the classroom. So the ways, I think the practice is this opportunity to really push against those old models and show up with more trusting of people. Again, adults, right, are going to show up in the ways that they want to show up to get to that next version of themselves. So you can trust that. You can rely on that as the instructor, and to move towards, I think, more of a facilitator model where you're holding space for what unique thing is going to emerge, right? And not being the one that has to control and nitpick about how it has to emerge.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I just was going to ask, I mean, when it comes to teaching, how does that evolve? Like, how does that also have to change? Because it can't be just the traditional, because when you said that, I saw a person in front, rows, right? As opposed to something more like a circle.
Yes.
Just even that, those things come to mind. And you're right, it makes for a much more powerful experience when it comes to teaching. So now as a teacher, I don't have to fully explain so much. It's like really a lot of the explanation is going to be best coming out of their mouth, related to their experience, contributing to a prompt. Like I love like that deepens everything.
Yes, right? I really think so. So my mother is a professor at a university. She's been most of my life a teacher, right? And so very much trained in the description that you just said. She's in the front of the room, rows and rows, she teaches psychology 101, right? So everybody has to show up and be in her class. And for a long time, we would have these debates about like, why can't you change? Like, you're perpetuating harm on these students, like teaching to this model and stuff, right? She's just like, and she exists within a university system with certain expectations. All right, I get that. So in this space, I really think like with our courses, particularly in the entrepreneurial space, we really have a lot more flexibility, right? We really have a lot more freedom, and we don't have to follow these models just because that was our experience of university or that was our experience of corporate training, that we can really move the needle. And just like you said, it deepens the experience, not just for you, but for every person, right? In that space, they come away with, whoa, I've never been in a learning environment like this. Whoa, like I'm actually going to remember that story. Wow, that one brought me to tears, that moment, that storytelling exchange, right? That wouldn't have happened if the instructor hadn't been like, okay, now we have the remainder of our time together, and I just want to see what y'all got. What can you add to what we're exploring here? What's been your experience? You have to give space and time for that, and you have to be okay with silence because it's still so new for so many of us, right? To be given that agency that we get to be responsible for our own learning in that way. And so people, are gonna be like, why I have to be on the spotlight, right? So you just give people time to adjust, but then they will show up.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, this is such a good conversation. Clearly, we could go on and on, especially on different ways to, right, just create more deep learning for people, because that's just it's a passion of mine. But as we start to wrap up the conversation, I would love to hear what you're up to for the new year, what you're excited about coming forward in 2023. I mean, I see the tree in the back. I see you are ready for the season, and then New Year's coming, right? So tell us a little bit about that and where people can reach out to you if they want to connect.
Yes. I love this time of year because, I mean, winter in a lot of ways, has me slow down, take stock, do a review, right? And make those next visions or goals for the new year. So what I'm excited about in 2023 is really being able to be a partner for people's messages that are seeking to create revolutionary level change, right? So whatever industry you're in, whatever sector of society or in the globe, really, right? There are so many issues facing humanity right now that that people already have solutions for, but they just got to get them out into the world, right? And that there are solutions that are homegrown, there are solutions that are people oriented, right? There are solutions that are respectful of the environment. So I want to support those kind of intentions and get those out into the world so that we can really create a human society, a human family that is healing from all of the destruction that so many years of colonization and excessive capitalism has waned itself on us and on the planet. And so two of the ways that I like to work with people around that is I offer a learning design intensive. So over the course of 2 weeks, we have a couple of brainstorming sessions so that we can move from ideating, right, on your solution to a process and a clear outline and curriculum suggestions that we can really come up with, what is the practice opportunity here that we really want to center on so that people can lean into that risky business, can lean into that new behavior change, and that you as the instructor facilitator can hold space for all of that. So we can just talk it through at a high level. And then my agency, Everflow Consulting, also offers full self-service course design and development. And so we can go further to build it all out for you. And I love being able to be, overseer of the details, but not involved in all of the details. And I think for a lot of folks who have written books, they too are part of are similar in that way of just like, I want to see the vision unfold, but not necessarily type every word like I did already. So I like to be in on that journey and look forward to connecting with any folks who are interested in that space. You can connect with me through my website at ninaeverflow.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love that there is someone else in the space who is supporting authors in this way. That's why I knew that this would be such a good conversation. I'm like, we were just going to do it. And I'm glad that we did.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you so much
Yes.
sharing your wisdom and insights today. And one last question I'll ask you is, what is your one word? If there was one word from Nina Everflow to the world, what would that one word be as a message?
I always lean into my last name, Everflow, which is something that my partner and I created after we got married. And for us, it means trusting in the ever-flowing abundance of the universe, that they got your back, that your visions can become your reality. And that is certainly the word that I want to gift out to everyone who is in my space, that it is possible, what we intend and what we dream into this world. And that inherently nature, the universe, is good for us and wants to support and see us thrive. And I very much believe in that. And so that would be the word I would offer.
I'm going to write that word down. Such a good word. Thank you again, Nina. So glad that we were able to do this today. And for those tuning in, definitely, if anything that she said resonated, I highly recommend a conversation with her and just connecting with her, staying in tune with her. She'll definitely be back, hopefully on the Author's Leverage again, to share some other insights with us. But Nina, again, thank you so much. It's just an honor to know you and be connected with you.
It was such a pleasure. Thanks again so much.
Yes. And for those tuning in, thanks again for being here. We will see you soon.
You've been tuning into the Author's Leverage podcast. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of our latest guest appearances and receive the best of the best strategies on successful authorship today. And be sure to connect with us and with today's guests using the links below this episode. If you're interested in turning your bestseller into a premium and profitable online course, head on over to our website and schedule a call with us today. Until next time, remember, publishing creates credibility, but products create cash. You can repurpose your book as a learning experience to make the impact and the income you want as an author. We'll see you on the next episode of The Author's Leverage.